Hi, this is Liz Barriger at Millrace Center, and I'm here today to talk to you about making masks for yourself and your loved ones. What I like to do is I like to buy yard goods at any retailer, and then once I get them home, I pick out the pattern that I'm going to use, and I lay it out so that I always know what the width of my pattern is, so I cut the piece out by width, and then I go along and I kind of how many pieces I can get out of that one width. And with a 45-inch material, you can usually get at least 3 masks that would look like this. And then once I get this material cut out, I change it from the right side, which is brighter than the inside, and I change it to that I'm working on what they call the wrong side. Now, what I do, this is rated for intermediate, but if you want, you can even hand sew these. But once you get it cut out, I cut out the elastic, and I will take the top panel off, and along the short side, you want to lay your elastic in the corner and pin it onto the material. And then take the other end, and you want to go along the short side. This is the part that is going to be next to your ears with the pleats. And then I take and then I pin it in, and it should look like that. Then once you get that pinned in, both pieces of elastic, you take your panel and you lay it over, and then you hold on to where you pinned at, and you pull the pins out, and you repin it so that it makes a sandwich, so that the elastic is in between the two panels of material. And then once you do that, then you should have a product that looks something similar to this. Then you're ready to sew. And what I do is that I sew. I don't sew all the way around it. I know this is not I should have used different colored thread so that you could see it, but I sewed all the way around it, but I left a hole. And the hole is for you to turn the piece, your mask, inside out. And what I'm doing is that I am just pushing all of the material through that hole, and then I will grab the elastic and pull. And this is what it should look like when it's turned right side out. Now, at this point, I like to take it to my ironing board, and I like to iron all the seams so that it looks nice and neat. And then it would look like this. Now, I'm ready to start my pleats. The pleats is what makes it a little bit harder, is making your pleats. And what I do is that I take the piece that I've ironed, I lay it on my pattern, and I line up my pins with the lines on my pattern because this is where my pleats are. The pattern has 3 sets of pleats. This one does. The solid is what's going to be folded in, and the others are going to be laid on top of. Let me show you. So in this first 3, I'm going to wrap around the center pin and put the first 2 pins together. This is and then I lay down the material. So you should have 4 pins almost touching each other. I take the 2 pins out, and I take one of the pins, the 3rd pin of the set of 3, and I put it in the pleat, and the pleat is completed. And so then I do it again. I take the center and I wrap material around, and I meet up with the 2 outside pins, or the 2 pins that have dots. I pull those 2 pins out, and I take the third pin, and I make my second pleat. And then I will do this last one and take the 2 pins out and make my pleat. And you should have something that looks like this. Now, when I get both sides done, I take it to the sewing machine and sew, and this is what it should look like when you're finished. You have elastic to go around your ears. You have enough material to go over the bridge of your nose down to below your chin. And while I was working with this, I took my pattern and I altered it a little bit. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But right now I want to get out another kind of mask that you can make at home. And again, I start out with the yard goods. I cut it down to the width and then the height of the masks. And I come up with a piece of material that looks like this. This is when I go and I turn it inside out. This is already turned inside out, but I turn it inside out, and instead of putting in the rubber bands, or the elastic, I'm sorry, I just go ahead and sew it. And with the opening in it, I will turn that inside out. And again, this is with no elastic. So once you get it turned inside out, you're going to have to work in the corners and push the corners out with your finger. And you may even want to go through with a pin and pull the corners out even more. But it will look like this. And then when you take it to your iron, like I do, then it will come out like this, and you could lay it down and pin it again for your pleats. And then once you have your pleats made, then you're just going to sew along the sides is all you're going to do, just to hold the pleats in place. And then I have a little, you either want to use bias tape. Sorry, I'm not quite prepared. You either want to buy bias tape, or it makes bias tape. And this can make bias tape out of yard goods. And I cut this is a 1 inch, and I cut it down, the material down to 1 3/4. It'll work in underneath this plate and up the sides, and when it comes out, it'll look like this, with the material folded over. And then I take my iron and I will fold it one more time and iron it to make a bias tape. And then you find the center of your mask and the center of your bias tape, and you will pin it together. Lay your mask inside the bias tape, fold it over, and pin it. And then I always like to make sure that I've got it matched up at the edge of the mask. And then I will take it to my machine and I will start sewing at this end and sew all the way along to the other end. And I will do it twice. And then you will end up with a mask that looks like this, that you can tie on instead of the elastic. It ties around your head, and it goes from the bridge of your nose to under your chin, and you will tie it around below the ears around your neck. It doesn't have to be tight. I like mine a little loose so that when I'm not in the store and I'm in my car, that I can pull it down and be able to drive with the mask just hanging like a necklace. And that's how you make a mask with elastic or with ties. Now, we'll go back to the pattern. I got my pattern from Joann Fabrics, and it came, this is the only pattern that they had. And once I got to make a mask for my family and friends, I had different ideas, and I acted on those ideas. So this is the mask that I got from Joann's, and I use a 7-inch elastic for it when I'm making this pattern. Now this is the two alterations from that. Some people wanted a larger mask, and that's fine. So what I did was that I have 4 pleats now instead of 3. And I use an 8-inch, 2 8-inch pieces of elastic for it, or ties, either one. And the last one, I got to thinking about I have a teenage grandchildren, and I have a toddler grandchild. So I got to thinking about her, and I thought, well, I can do a 2-pleat for her. And so I thought, this is the small that I made, which is only 2 pleats. The medium I made, and this is for young adults or ladies, and this is 3 pleats. This is 3 pleats, sorry. And then this is the 4-pleat for gentlemen that I did make out of the Joann pattern that I did get. Now, necessity is the mother of invention, so you don't necessarily have to have elastic, and you don't have to necessarily have bias tape. So in this bag, I kind of let my imagination run with what I had. This is the mask with the bias tape. And with this mask, I did it with shoelaces. And these shoelaces were 54 inches. I cut them down to 18 inches and got 3 sets of shoelaces for masks. Now this shoelace was a 36-inch, so as you can see, instead of attaching it at the corners like I did here, I attached it like I did my bias tape. And then here's the one with the elastic at the corners that I demonstrated. And this is one my teenage granddaughter has already wanted. And I did my best to keep it from her, but I took lace and I used it as I did the bias tape so that the lace could be tied on around your head. And I thought about this one, and my 16-year-old granddaughter just laughed at me, but this is a headband that you could put around your head. And honestly, I would put, this is how I sewed it. I would put this part under my chin and this part above my nose. So it should go this way because as you can see, the headband is offset. And the headband I would put above my ears with that one. Now, with all that being said, I went out to the store and I bought the largest size of hairband elastics that I could find, because I seen there was, when all this started, there was Dr. Sanjay Gupta or the top medical guy made this, and I just thought it was really interesting, and I thought I would just review it. Now, what I would do, I would go from the palm of my hand up to my fingertip, and that should, maybe the ring finger, but that's how I measured on how wide to make this one. And what I would do is that I would take the handkerchief and fold it twice and put my palm down here at the bottom and look up here to see how this is going to be too big. So I will pull the top down a little bit more, and that's how I figured to make this mask, non-sewing mask. So now I want to take my hair ties and loop it through one end, and then I'm going to take the second one and loop it through the other end, and I am going to overlap both of these. Now, the part with the raw corners, the raw edge, that with the edges, I would put against my face. Oops, I got them a little bit too tight, so I'm going to adjust. And then I will put the ends on the inside. And loop around, loop around my ears, and then you can adjust this over the bridge of the nose and underneath your chin, and be able to have a mask that you don't have to sew. Now, just because I used a handkerchief doesn't mean that I suggest anything cotton. If you just have scraps cotton material, and you have the elastic hair ties, then to go that route. It would be quicker and easier. So we will have all of this information on milroycenter.org, and we'll try to have a link to Joann Fabrics where you can get this original three-pleat pattern and the instructions. So I hope everybody stays well and stays safe, and hopefully we will see you soon. Thank you.